You're being let go effective immediately, Meredith said, smiling like a damn shark in lipstick. We're restructuring the team, and well, your skill set just isn't specialized enough to justify retention. No hard feelings, Vanessa. These decisions aren't personal. Then she hit me with it. That line. Your skills are a dime a dozen. The conference room went dead quiet, except for the faint hum of the ceiling fan and someone's spoon clinking in a mug across the hall. 14 faces blinked back at me on Zoom, frozen in a half-chew or polite grimace, unsure if they should look away or pretend to check Slack. My heart wasn't beating faster, no. It was doing the opposite, like it curled into a fetal position and stopped altogether, just to keep from lunging out of my chest and punching her across the recycled wood table. I didn't say a word. No tears, no arguing. No, but I've been here 7 years. No mention of the time I rebuilt our entire analytics backend after their pet dev left for Meta. No reminder that I trained half this team while getting paid less than the intern who once asked if Python was like for snakes. I just nodded once, noted, and then I stood, straightened my blouse, old, thrifted, coffee-stained in the lining, and started gathering my things. Laptop, charger, notepad. I left the coffee mug. Let them keep it. It said #1 team player. Felt like a damn joke now. No one moved, not even Kyle, who once told me I was the glue holding the reporting stacked together. They all just stared, eyes darting like hostages waiting to see if the gunman would shoot again. Meredith, meanwhile, smiled like she'd just sent a dog to the shelter. Cold, pleased, alive on the inside in the same way a freezer is white, silent, and full of dead things wrapped in plastic. As I walked out, she added with a little smirk, "Have IT revoke your credentials by end of day. If you could just leave your badge on the front desk, that'd be great." I dropped it on the counter as I passed, the clink of plastic on Formica echoing louder than her damn voice ever did. In the elevator, the silence hit different, the kind that comes right after a car crash. I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry yet. I was something worse. I was remembering how I'd been looped out of salary review talks last quarter due to seniority level. Remembering how Meredith once told me I was a stabilizer while promoting a guy who asked me how to merge a pull request. Remembering how I'd submitted a DEI proposal with real data modeling and watched it die in committee because optics. But most of all, I remembered the password. The one I hadn't typed in months, that sat in my bones like muscle memory. When I got home, I didn't pour a drink, didn't rage text friends or spiral through LinkedIn job posts. I plugged in my personal laptop, turned off my phone, and opened a browser window. One tab, Gmail, another, a blank notepad, and the third, the admin login for PayTorch. Username, redacted password, enter. Dashboard loaded like a knife slipping through old skin. Smooth, clean, waiting. Meredith didn't know. None of them did. They thought they were firing just another analyst. What they actually did was piss off the ghost in their machine. PayTorch wasn't built in a weekend. It was born at 3 a.m. in a one-bedroom apartment that smelled like burnt coffee and existential dread. Lines of code scribbled on napkins, SQL queries scribbled in notebooks, duct tape solutions stitched together on an old Dell that wheezed like a dying lawnmower. No funding, no co-founder, no startup boot camp. Just me, Red Bull, and a slow-burning rage at how every company I worked for lied through their teeth about salaries. So I built the antidote. Not a flashy app. Not some buzzy, VC-slicked startup with founders in Patagonia vests. Just a stripped-down, brutally functional platform where people could anonymously post what they really got paid. Title, years of experience, equity, bonuses, benefits, the dirty little add-ons HR never admits to. I coded every line myself. I built the crawler that scraped recruiter spam for salary ranges. I installed the encryption layer. I even forged the moderation AI, trained on every corporate PR statement I could find just so it could spot and delete BS in 5 languages. And I never attached my name. Even the moderators thought the admin was a collective. A myth, PayTorch ghost, they called it. Assumed it was a rogue techie. Others figured it was a disgruntled union. A few whispered it was built by a pissed-off ex-Google engineer who'd fled to Canada. It was none of those things. It was me, Vanessa, the dime a dozen girl who apparently wasn't worth a mid-year bonus. The admin dashboard loaded on my screen like a throne room. Black background, white text, minimalist, secure, beautiful. 5 million active users. 30,000 salary submissions last week. I watched the analytics pulse like a heartbeat. Then I clicked on the company's tab, typed in the name of my now former employer. There it was, their profile. Dozens of positions listed, salary ranges, bonus info, equity data. Hundreds of anonymous reviews from employees over the years, some good, some blistering, all of it honest. I hovered over the status drop-down. The options, active under review blacklisted, I didn't hesitate. I didn't monologue, didn't even blink. Click, blacklisted. A single confirmation window popped up. Are you sure you want to delist this employer from PayTorch? This action will render all their data invisible to users. Recruiters and job seekers will no longer be able to access compensation insights, negotiation benchmarks, or position reviews. Yes, the screen refreshed. Their company name turned gray. Their reviews and salaries collapsed like scaffolding yanked from under a building. The outside, it would look like they never existed, like a ghost town, like a black hole where a company used to be. They'd still exist in the code, of course, buried, dormant. I didn't delete anything. I'm not a monster. But no recruiter using PayTorch would be able to verify a damn thing about them. No job seeker would be able to benchmark offers, and no intern hoping to break into tech would see what their peers made inside those walls. To the public, it looked like the company vanished from the wage map. I leaned back in my chair. The silence in my apartment was thick, not heavy, not loud, just complete. No Slack notifications, no Zoom calls, no Meredith smirking through a webcam while pretending to empathize. Just me, my code, and a company slowly realizing the foundation had been pulled from under their feet. They fired me like I was nothing. But now they'd have to operate like they were nothing. 3 days later, the emails started stacking like bodies. Hi Meredith, candidate for backend Roman 2 ghosted us, never showed up to the second round. Another drop-off, front-end lead, signed the NDA, then went radio silent. I just had a promising candidate say they weren't comfortable accepting an offer with no salary transparency. Any idea what she meant? Meredith responded like she always did, short, clipped, oozing fake confidence. Stay the course. A strong brand, probably just noise. But it wasn't noise. It was a pattern. And it was accelerating. By Thursday, 3 offers had been rescinded by the applicants. One of them even wrote a little thank you note that, if Meredith had actually read past the passive-aggressive pleasantries, was basically a middle finger in cursive. Appreciate the opportunity, but after speaking with a few current and former employees, decided to pursue a role with more clarity around compensation and growth. Best of luck in your hiring journey. Translation, I looked you up. I saw the hole where your soul should be. I'm out. Inside Slack, the recruiters were unraveling. One asked, innocently enough, if PayTorch was having system maintenance, because for some reason, they couldn't pull salary comps anymore. Another swore they were seeing cached pages that no longer loaded. Someone even joked that maybe they'd been shadow banned. Meredith replied with one sentence, it's probably a tech glitch. Circle back in a week. A tech glitch. She said it like it was nothing, like a loose cable or an expired cookie. Like 5 million users hadn't just been cut off from the ability to even see her company. Like someone hadn't slammed the blackout curtain down right over their little glass recruiting booth. I watched it all unfold from my laptop, sipping reheated coffee and scrolling the company's subreddit. A few anonymous posts started cropping up. Anyone else noticed they're gone from PayTorch? Thought it was just me. Was comparing salaries last night and their page is 404 ing. Maybe they got flagged for fraud? I heard a recruiter lowballed my friend by 30K. I didn't post anything, not yet, just lurked. Let the wildfire light itself. But the best part, the actual dessert, is watching Meredith keep her ice-cold composure as the ground softened beneath her. In every team meeting, she said the same thing. The market's volatile. This is a phase. We just need to double down on outreach and reposition the brand. Outreach. They could have launched a parade with clowns juggling resumes and still wouldn't land a hire. Because no matter how flashy the job posting, no matter how many unlimited PTO bullet points they jammed into the description, candidates were leaving faster than a Dollar Tree air conditioner in a July heat wave. And all the while, I kept quiet. No gloating, no burner accounts yet, no smug LinkedIn posts. Just silence, bitterness, and glee. They danced together in my chest like ex-lovers at a funeral. See, it wasn't just about revenge. Not really. It was about watching them feel the same confusion they used to feed me, the same gaslighty days I felt when I was skipped over for raises, when Meredith would circle back on promotions until I forgot I even asked. When HR smiled while taking things I built and handing them to men who called me detail-oriented like it was a compliment and not a consolation prize. Now they were the ones being left on read. Now they were the ones asking questions with no answers. And it was only the beginning. The thread hit Reddit like a splinter under a nail, small, sharp, and impossible to ignore. r/tech jobs mid-morning. Title: Why is UpVector suddenly hidden on PayTorch? No emojis, no flair. Just a clean, ominous question from a throwaway account. Within hours, it had over 400 comments and a mess of upvotes. The kind of post you can feel vibrating under the skin of recruiters trying to pretend they're not lurking. People dove in like sharks at a Costco blood sale. I interviewed their last fall. Seemed normal until the offer came in, $82K for a mid-level back-end role. In San Francisco, they rescinded an offer after I asked about pay bands, said I was too focused on compensation. I worked there 2 years ago. Pretty sure they fired someone for just asking about how bonuses were calculated. And then someone dropped the screenshot. It was a cached version of the PayTorch listing from 2 weeks earlier. Salary ranges, median bonuses, even the employee equity reviews. Everything before it vanished. Thought I was crazy, the commenter wrote. I looked them up 2 nights ago and their whole profile's gone, like it never existed. That's when I knew it was time. I pulled up one of my old burners, Giraffe Crisis 83, handle I once used to argue about API rate limits and the best hot sauce for egg sandwiches. I hadn't touched it in a year, perfectly aged, authentically inactive. I typed one sentence, maybe they have something to hide, posted, no edits, no follow-up, and just like that the comment took on a life of its own. Someone replied, skull, 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 okay, but like afar another said, I knew IT, felt shady from the jump. Then came the thread within the thread. People digging, cross-referencing PayTorch cache links, old job posts, Glassdoor reviews, even LinkedIn updates. One enterprising little wizard even screen-recorded the PayTorch site's API call and noticed the company ID returned a 403 error. I work in InfoSec, they wrote. That's not a glitch. That's a block. I watched it all unfold like a bonfire built from old performance reviews and HR's smug platitudes. LinkedIn caught the scent next, subtle at first. A recruiter posted a passive-aggressive note about transparency warriors who think they know everything. It got radioed into oblivion. Glassdoor saw a sudden uptick in balanced reviews that all smelled like they were written by a content mill. 3 stars. Lots of dynamic work environment and challenging but rewarding. The kind of linguistic beige that practically screams panic. But the real moment, champagne cork pop of vindication, came when the company's official Twitter account tweeted a meme about navigating job searches with confidence. Beneath it, a dozen comments asking, how should we navigate when your company ghosted from PayTorch? Confidence or concealment? Eyes, hey, do you offer dental and wage secrecy or just the latter? Meredith, I imagine, was still brushing it off. In her mind, it was probably some rogue mod at PayTorch, maybe a misconfiguration in their dev stack. She probably sent an email to their support address, marked urgent with the subject, listing visibility concern. I could almost hear her snapping at the recruiter team, telling them to refocus on sourcing quality candidates while the floor slowly gave way beneath them. But the thing about Meredith is that she only ever knew how to control what she could see. Slack channels, calendar invites, eye rolls in meetings. Was good at spotting things within her little fortress of beige carpeting and passive-aggressive email threads. What she didn't understand, what she never could understand, was how power flows underground. Through forums, through whispers, through ghost data and burned bridges and back-channel DMs between ex-employees who remember every cut, every insult, every lie dressed as policy. And now the whispers were becoming noise. Noise she couldn't mute. And I wasn't even done yet. Started with a spreadsheet. Nothing flashy. Just a clean, crisp Excel file titled Engineer Comp Q3 Internal Use Only XLSX. I'd saved it 2 years ago, back when I was asked to tidy up the analytics folder for director's offsite presentation. I remember opening it and feeling my face go hot. 2 columns side by side. Engineer name, base salary. Then further down, bonus eligibility, stock options level. And without even trying, math spoke louder than any memo ever could. Guys hired straight out of boot camp were pulling 12–18% more than women with 3–5 years in seat. The one female team lead, she was making less than the guy who used to call her code mommy in meetings. I saved it. Back then, I told myself it was just for accountability. Maybe one day, I'd bring it up through the right channels. File a concern. Have a mature discussion. Way they train you to believe HR is a neutral party and not just a corporate firewall in lipstick. Now it was a grenade. I redacted names, removed personally identifying info, stripped metadata and bounced it through 3 VPNs. Then, with the precision of a surgeon and the glee of a hitman, I timed the upload. Sunday night, 11:43 p.m. Prime doomscroll hours. I posted it in a private Slack group for tech salary transparency. Invite only, but heavily monitored by journalists and disillusioned engineers. Caption: Q3 2022 comp snapshot from a mid-sized company that rhymes with suck vector. Looks like performance-based pay, if your performance includes being named Jake. It didn't take long. By morning, it had leaked into the main salary transparency subreddit. One user connected the data to up Vector's old job listings. Another pointed out the exact dollar amount of discrepancy between 2 identical job titles. A former employee chimed in, can confirm, asked for a raise, was told we don't negotiate off-cycle. My male peer got an unscheduled bump the same month. Then came the second drop. This time, it was a PDF, an old offer letter for a DevOps hire who got a $15K sign-on bonus and an extra week of vacation due to exceptional potential. Had the female candidate's letter too. Same role, same title, no bonus. The only difference, her resume had better credentials. I dropped that one Tuesday afternoon, right in the middle of a live queue and a Meredith was doing on the company's internal culture hour. Her face on camera, trying to explain how we value equity not just in words, but in structure, while the Slack sidebar lit up with pings and DM groups buzzed like a kicked beehive. Senior engineer posted in the Hash General channel, can someone explain why comp transparency is a threat and not a value? Someone else replied with just a popcorn emoji. By Wednesday, a team lead quit, not quietly, publicly, in an all-hands, camera on, voice steady. I can't ask people to trust a company that treats pay like a poker game, she said, especially when the rules clearly change depending on what you look like. Then she left the Zoom. Just poof, left Meredith blinking like someone had yanked the Ethernet cord from her spine. The silence afterward was nuclear. Recruiting came to a standstill. Candidates started asking for specific pay band data before even agreeing to a phone screen. One recruiter asked if they could soft pitch roles without mentioning company name. Meredith was spinning. She called an emergency meeting with legal and IT, demanded to know if they'd been hacked, if there was a breach. One had snuck into their SharePoint. They hadn't. There was no hack, no breach, just truth. Truth pulled from dusty folders, polished until it gleamed and dropped into the world like coins on a drumhead. She couldn't trace it, couldn't contain it, couldn't even figure out who was leaking what because the leaks weren't all from me. Other employees, current and former, started digging too. Quiet little emails, archived offer letters, screenshots of Slack conversations, things that had once made people roll their eyes and say, don't rock the boat. Well, the boat was swaying now. And Meredith, she was standing right at the edge. By Friday morning, Meredith wasn't just spiraling, she was calculating collapse. The air inside that office must have been thick with corporate sweat and unsent Slack drafts. Word had it she canceled all candidate calls for the week and demanded full visibility into internal document permissions, the ghost of Steve Jobs possessed by a mall cop. IT was summoned to her office twice before 10 a.m., and by lunch, she'd already accused 2 interns of leaking proprietary data for Internet Cloud. I wasn't there, obviously, but people talk, especially when fear sets in. She locked down shared drives, froze several team leads out of Confluence access, ordered one of the sysadmins to do a forensic sweep of outbound traffic logs for the past 90 days, told her it would take weeks. She told them they had 2 days or she'd restructure their entire department. That's when the Slack channels started going quiet, not because people weren't talking, but because they weren't talking in public anymore. Private group chats formed. Some people switched to Signal. A few even deleted company profiles altogether and started ghosting HR requests like they were haunted voicemails from a dead ex. And then, quietly, beautifully, someone cracked. A junior HR staffer named Elise, the one who used to refill the snack bar and hand out Wellness Wednesday bulletins like they meant something. She quit, just left. No 2-week notice, no exit interview, just a resignation email with the subject line, Accountability isn't optional. Inside, one sentence. If this place burns down, don't assume everyone inside tried to put out the fire. Hours later, I got a DM. And her email, no name, no emoji. Just the message, we all saw what she did to you, thank you. I stared at it for a while, not with triumph, not with smug satisfaction, but with this strange, stunned ache in my chest. Like I'd been holding my breath for 2 years and someone finally whispered, you weren't crazy. It hit me harder than any revenge fantasy ever did. I never thought anyone in that building even noticed. I assumed they'd all drank the Kool-Aid and kept sipping while I was shown the door. But apparently, while Meredith was busy architecting her little glass palace of corporate lies, some people were scribbling escape plans on napkins. The funny thing is, I didn't need allies. Not at first. But now they were showing up like moths to a truth-shaped flame. Guy forwarded me a meeting agenda from an executive offsite, where Meredith proposed limiting salary access to senior HR only to prevent transparency leaks. Another uploaded an audio recording of a meeting where a manager told a female engineer to stop comparing comp. It creates envy. A third shared a screenshot of an internal doc labeled Narrative Control Plan with bullet points like reinforce culture wins, downplay online sentiment, and identify employees who engage in toxic transparency. They weren't trying to fix the leak. They were trying to spin the flood. And every person who sent me something, every quiet ally, every whistleblower, every tired dev who'd spent 3 years thinking they were alone, they all shared the same tone, exhaustion laced with clarity. Not rage, not even rebellion, just people finally done pretending the house wasn't on fire while the CEO roasted marshmallows in the boardroom. And Meredith, she couldn't stop it. She thought if she just found the one mole, she could plug the hole. But she was hunting shadows in a house full of open windows. Every locked door she slammed just funneled more air into the blaze. She didn't know who I was, but worse, she didn't realize I wasn't the only one. They tried to relist on Monday. Some overworked middle manager in HR must have logged into PayTorch like a man stumbling through fog, dragging a new company profile template behind him. New branding, new tagline. A desperate little bullet point that read, committed to pay transparency and equity. I almost choked on my coffee. They thought they could outmaneuver the ghost with rebranding and a blue checkmark. Cute. The moment that request hit the back end, my little script caught it. Line 47. If company ID equals up vector right arrow status equals pending right arrow delay 99,999 minutes. Elegant, infinite, infuriating. Every time they tried to submit, the dashboard would smile politely and say, request pending. Please allow up to 72 hours for approval. And every 72 hours, the loop reset. No errors, no red flags, just limbo. They submitted again. And again. 4 attempts in a week, each one with slightly more desperate tweaks. They even removed the word up vector once and tried using UV TechWorks. Denied. The system still recognized their employer ID and bounced it right back into the void. Meanwhile, a whisper campaign lit up the consultant circuit. Turns out they hired a boutique compliance agency out of Austin, something with a sterile name like Equinix Partners or Signal Safe. Audit their digital footprint and restore public trust. Translation: please fix the mess we don't understand, without telling us how badly we broke it. The consultants poked around PayTorch's public API, sniffed some headers, ran DevTools diagnostics like tech exorcists fumbling through holy scripts. I watched the log pings in real time, sipping La Croix like I was courtside at a blood sport. Then one of them got clever. A senior engineer named Lewis, judging by the console fingerprint, finally cracked open the sandbox environment and pinged the relisting protocol. He saw what others hadn't. Not a glitch, not a misfire. A wall, clean, intentional, and handwritten by someone with full admin access. He ran a test submission through a spoofed employer ID. Worked like a charm, no delay, no timeout. Just green lights all the way down. Then he changed one variable, plugged in up vector's ID again. Loop. Tried to bypass it. Denied. Tried to escalate to mod level override. Denied. He even tried submitting under a new domain, upvector jobs, with a brand new IP. Blocked in under 0.03 seconds. That's when the internal Slack lit up. Lewis says this isn't a systems issue. What do you mean? He says someone at PayTorch intentionally blocked our access from the top level. Like a dev? No, like the dev. Meredith must have felt the floor tilt under her. She'd spent weeks framing the whole thing as a glitch, Some rogue bug, a permissions hiccup, maybe even a disgruntled intern who hit the wrong button. Now the consultants were telling her there was no rogue. This was built, baked into the code like arsenic in the wedding cake. They couldn't climb it, couldn't tunnel under it, couldn't sweet-talk their way around it with policy rewrites and polished PR statements. There was no email to contact, no support at Paydorchcom that would forward to an intern who'd pass along her desperate plea. There was just the wall, the digital equivalent of a deadbolt welded shut from the other side, with no key and no locksmith. And me? I watched it all from my screen, one tab open to my admin console, another open to their Slack leak. Because yes, someone very helpful was forwarding screenshots now, a third tab open to the burner subreddit where someone had just posted. So if PayTorch isn't glitching, who the hell did UpVector piss off? The tide had turned. They no longer believed it was an accident. Now they were afraid it was personal. They were right. The LinkedIn message hit my inbox on a Thursday morning. No subject line fluff. No HR fluff. Just a direct message from a profile so polished it practically gleamed. Grant H. Levine, or director at UpVector, former COO of 3 Fortune 500s, current advisor to half the Valley's IPO hopefuls. His profile banner was a city skyline at dawn, the kind of photo execs use when they want to look inspirational but accidentally just remind you of how lonely glass towers are. The message was short. Vanessa, I believe we may have crossed paths before. I'm reaching out not as a representative of UpVector, but as someone curious and impressed. If you're open to a conversation, there's a corner table at Levy Cafe that's pretty quiet this time of day. My treat, no threats, no demands, no cease and desist bluster. He knew, not suspected. Knew I didn't reply for day. Let it marinate. Then, out of curiosity and maybe a little arrogance, I accepted. I picked the time, wore something deliberately boring, walked into that cafe like I was just another remote worker here for overpriced scones and passable espresso. Grant was already seated, navy blazer, no tie, reading something on his iPad with the calm detachment of a man who's seen entire companies die in silence. He stood when I approached. Vanessa, he said, extending a hand. I had a feeling. You always this dramatic, I asked. He smiled. Only when I'm trying to hire ghosts. We sat, didn't bother with small talk, didn't ask how I'd been or if I wanted a muffin. Just leaned back, steepled his fingers and said, You built PayTorch. I didn't nod, didn't need to, and you blackballed UpVector. Technically, I said, stirring my coffee, I just denied a listing request. He laughed, not fake, not nervous, genuine. The kind of laugh you only hear from someone who's finally had their suspicion confirmed and finds it more impressive than threatening. Always knew it wasn't some Stanford wonderkind, he said. The elegance of that blacklist loop, that was spite, not product market fit. I let the silence hang. He studied me, elbows on the table. I'm not here to ask you to undo it. Frankly, it's already too late for that. Meredith's on her way out, the brand's bleeding from both ends. Candidates are spooked and investors are sniffing rot, but I have to admit, what you did, that was clean, precise. Like a surgeon or a sniper. I raised an eyebrow. That a compliment or a warning? Both, he said, but mostly the first. He paused, then leaned forward slightly. I came here with a question, he said. What if you did this professionally? I blinked. I don't mean sabotage, he clarified. I mean consulting. Auditing comp data, flagging inequality before it metastasizes, helping companies prevent this kind of public implosion, maybe even teaching HR departments that NDAs aren't a substitute for ethics. He slid a card across the table. Not corporate, no logo, just his name and a direct email. A private one. I don't expect an answer today, he said. Hell, I don't even expect a yes. But I've been in this business a long time, Vanessa. And every decade or so, someone shows up who doesn't just play the game, they change the rules. You just changed the rules. I stared at the card. It was heavier than it looked. You think I want to help companies like yours? I asked. No, he said. I think you want to make sure no one else gets treated the way you were. He stood up, left a crisp 20 on the table for the coffee he didn't finish, and nodded once. Whether you say yes or not, he said, you already won. The only question now is what kind of victory you want it to be. He left. I sat there a while longer, watching the steam rise from my cup, his card burning a soft rectangle into my palm. I hadn't answered. But for the first time, the idea of coming out of the shadows didn't feel like surrender. It felt like choice. Meredith was terminated on a Tuesday. Not even a press release, just a cold internal memo with the subject line, leadership transition and organizational realignment. 2 paragraphs, 0 warmth. Effective immediately, Meredith A. Be stepping down from her role as VP of People Operations. We thank her for her service and wish her well in her future endeavors. Translation: she's gone. We're scrubbing her from the walls. The memo went out at 8:03 a.m. By 8:12, her calendar had been wiped. By 8:17, a recruiter posted a vague tweet about new beginnings. By 8:29, someone had already replaced her nameplate on the glass office with interim HR lead TBA. No goodbye email. No LinkedIn post thanking my amazing team. Just quiet footsteps and the slow, bitter thud of her professional reputation being shoved into a manila folder. I imagined she sat at her desk for a while, maybe still clinging to the idea that this was temporary, that she'd land a C-suite at a startup desperate enough to ignore the fallout. Maybe she was scrolling through job boards that morning, convincing herself she had options. Then the blog post went live. At exactly 9:00 a.m., I published it, under my real name, first time ever. Title: HR Can't Hide Behind NDAs Forever. It opened with a simple thesis: transparency is not a favor. It's not a perk. It's the bare Gotham minimum. I didn't name up Vector outright. I didn't need to. The story was told in patterns: how companies exploit silence clauses to suppress equity discussions, how culture is often weaponized to gaslight victims into compliance, how loyalty is extracted but never reciprocated. And then I laid it bare. I was told my skills were a dime a dozen, so I built a platform used by millions. I was fired without ceremony, so I pulled the curtain back on the stage they built on inequity. You can't redact what people remember. You can't fire the truth. The footer, signed, Vanessa Holt, creator of PayTorch. For years, PayTorch was faceless. Intentionally, it gave the data more power. But now the face mattered. Now people needed to see who'd been behind the curtain all along. It trended in less than 20 minutes. LinkedIn exploded. Reddit pinned the post to r/tech transparency. Glassdoor quoted it. Twitter screenshotted it and turned it into a rallying cry. DMs poured in, hundreds of them. Engineers, HR folks, journalists, some sharing their own stories, others just saying thank you like I'd cracked a code they'd been trying to write for a decade. And somewhere in a corner office with the blinds drawn too tightly and the fluorescent lights flickering just wrong, Meredith read it. I know she did, because someone from her department forwarded me a screenshot. Her standing over a half-emptied desk. Cardboard box half full. Old mug, tension balls, a framed photo of her dog, and on her monitor, the blog post. My face, staring back from the author bio. Not smug, not vengeful, just real. The woman she dismissed in a meeting like an afterthought had just stepped onto a global stage and pulled the mic straight out of her hand. I hope she read every line. I hope she saw the comment section lighting up with truth bombs she could no longer contain. I hope she finally understood that HR isn't immune to reckoning just because they control the exit paperwork. And me. I closed the laptop slowly. The kind of close you do when you know there's no more hiding. Not because it's safe, but because you're finally ready to be seen. No aliases. No burner accounts. No more waiting. Just my name, my words, and the silence that followed when the last mask dropped. You're the real stars of the corporate jungle. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, or I'll flick the switch on your old cubicle memories.